Hi guys, I have some other videos prepped and on the way, but I wanted to make this one quickly because the best reading month of the year is almost upon us, August, Women in Translation Month. And if you've been around here for a little while, you probably know that Kendra, Matthew, and I run a week-long readathon here on BookTube as part of the merriment. This is the most insane time of the day for me to film in terms of lighting consistency in my apartment, but this is the time that I have, and I honestly don't think anybody really cares about the lighting, right? It's just different shades of pale. The 2022 WIT Readathon will take place from August 8th to 14th, that entire week. And as always, we have some prompts for anybody who's interested. This year, we wanted to focus the readathon on slowing down, going deeper, and ideally having some fun. So we have 3 main prompts and an optional group book, and 2 of the prompts have multiple tracks because we want to make sure that everybody who wants to join in can, regardless of how many women in translation you have or haven't read in the past. And I always like to mention this, that although this is primarily an English language reader phenomenon to even need to remind yourself to read in translation, you can be reading in any language for that week as long as the book in question is by a woman and was translated. And bonus points for women translators as well. Prompt number 1 is to read a book from a language you've read before. For those who are newer to women in translation reading, your option for this prompt is to try out a work in translation from a country you've read about in your own language. Maybe you've read a lot about France or Thailand or Egypt, and you think you actually want to branch into works in translation now. And then for those of you wanting to level up, for the first prompt, your option is to read a book from an author you've read before. I don't know why I can't say that word today. I personally am going to do the fast track on this one. I'm going to be reading hopefully from 2 authors I've read before. A separate TBR video is coming soon, but we wanted this as an option too because I know that I can get really excited about an author, but then get distracted by the variety of books that are available. And I want to make more of an effort to get to know certain authors' bodies of work as a whole, to go deeper. Prompt number 2 is to revisit a book you've already read. I'm going to explain that wording in a second. The newer option is to read a work in translation recommended to you by a friend, bookseller, or librarian, because in a way that's helping the person that you're speaking to revisit something that they've read. And then the more challenging option here is to reread an entire Women in Translation book. I'm going to be sticking to the original prompt with this one. I am not leveling up. We're deliberately using the word revisit here so that you don't feel any pressure to read an entire book for this prompt. Actually, it can be really liberating in my experience to dip back into something you've enjoyed in the past without that compulsion toward completion, without needing to count it toward your yearly total or to list it on Goodreads, or I don't know what the kids do these days, the Storygraph. I'm going to encourage everyone to dip back in, take a stroll through a book without breaking into a jog. I think I'm going to be dipping back into a poetry collection that I've been meaning to revisit for a while, but it's on the longer side and I haven't wanted to read it page for page. But if you reread a few chapters or essays from an old book friend and want to keep going with it, find that you do want to reread the whole thing, go for it. Number 3 is our most concrete prompt yet, no interpretation required here. Read a book that brings you joy. You'll be shocked to know that I didn't come up with this one myself. When Matthew presented it, I was like, gonna need to mull that one over. Joy in this case doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't tough subject matter in the book you choose. It can be lighter in terms of subject matter, but it can also be a book that brings you joy because of its style, its tone, its narrator, its genre. Feel free to be as flexible with this one as you want. But I think it could be challenging for some of us, right? I mean, I usually read from Central and Eastern Europe, so my typical TBR is like, oh, another book about a village being burned to the ground, give it to me. In my upcoming TBR video, I'll be offering some suggestions for this prompt, so stay tuned if you feel like you need help, and we can also crowdsource options in the comments below. And finally, our group book for this year is Oksana Zabuzhko's Fieldwork in Ukrainian Sex, translated from Ukrainian by Halyna Hryn. We strive to make this an accessible option, so this novel is about 170 pages long. It's available on e-readers and on audio. And it's from a major Ukrainian author. Zabuzhko kind of made a name for herself with this title that was published in Ukraine in 1996 and remained on the bestseller list for about a decade there. So clearly something about it hugely resonated with a post-independence Ukraine. Feel free to read Fieldwork in Ukrainian Sex that week of the readathon or at any point in the month, because in September, Matthew, Kendra, and I will film a discussion video so we can all debrief, and we'd love your input. That should be everything. My TBR is looking amazing for the month of August. I am like the least cool person in the world when I look at this perfect stack of books and think about how soon I get to read all of them alongside the rest of you. Let me know about any early thoughts you have on the WIT readathon, on the prompts, and of course on the month in general, and I'll see you soon for another video.